My guest this morning from a double shot of Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. I can't say enough times how much I appreciate this organization and all the individuals that are part of it. Corey Brewer is joining me. She's an associate counsel for Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Good morning, Corey. How are you?
Good morning. Pleasure to be with you.
Well, thank you for joining me. Interestingly, just yesterday, I was made aware of this by one of our listeners, as I shared to you off air, called in and talked about a post on, I guess he saw this on a Facebook post about Appleton East. And thankfully, because of Will and your Equality Under the Law project, you immediately got into action. And I guess I'll let you take it from there. Describe what has occurred in the Appleton East High School and Will's response to it.
Yes, to our attention a few days ago. And what it is, it was a Facebook post by Appleton East, and it was for a freshman students of color meet and greet. Okay, that, in itself seems like, inclusive, and we understand it's well-intentioned. But the problem is it's only open to students of certain races. The Facebook post specifically said that all students are welcome, about 2 weeks later. So certain races are invited to a meet and greet. They get to see the building, the staff, have some food, look at the building, and then the rest of the students of all races, they get to come 2 weeks later. And we, right away, this looks like really blatant racial discrimination in violation of state and federal laws, even in violation of the school district's own policies on discriminating against students based on race. So we felt it would be appropriate to write a letter to the school, make it public, because this isn't the only place where this is happening. And schools, public schools, which are government entities, they need to know that not only is this problematic, but it's illegal and it's unconstitutional to discriminate based on race.
It's stunning to me. I mean, it's just blatant segregation that they're practicing. I mean, what is the matter? I mean, this isn't the first example of it. I mean, I think I think it's been popping up throughout the state. And, we've seen examples of it too in other parts of the country. But so have you heard, has the school board or anyone in the administration from Appleton responded to your letter?
Not directly yet. All we've heard is that, the school is striving for inclusivity. And again, we understand the intention is probably good, but look, this is illegal. You cannot discriminate against students and separate students based on race. And beyond it being illegal and unconstitutional, these are freshman students, right? You think about a freshman, you're excited, you're anxious about going to high school. All freshmen of all races, they want to see the building, meet their teacher, maybe get set up in their locker, meet their classmates. And to start off their high school career by kind of dividing them into us and them based on skin color, that's really problematic. And, not only is it illegal, but students should be treated as individuals, not based on characteristics that they can't control, like their race. And obviously, our country has a long history of not good outcomes when we separate based on race. So, trying to strive for this inclusivity by excluding certain races, we just disagree that's a good approach to do this, not to mention it being unconstitutional.
Well, yeah, minor detail there, I guess. But so I mean, inclusivity. So prior to 2023, evidently, they didn't care about inclusivity. I mean, it's so peculiar to me that this is, and I guess I won't even say peculiar. That's probably the wrong word. I might characterize it more as deliberate and diabolical because as I said, we're seeing other examples of this throughout the state. I'm trying to think if there was another case that Will is addressing was it in Eau Claire? I'm trying to remember which grievance at this point, because there's so many different instances of, oh no, it was in Madison. That was it. I think there was a case in Madison. I think that Will is also addressing.
Yeah, we've seen instances in the Madison area, Sun Prairie. They have a program. I think it's called Dear Diary. It's only open to girls of certain races, and when you get to this happening in education in particular, our courts have been really, really clear that our law is meant to be neutral and colorblind. And just this summer, in the Students for Fair Admission case, that principle was again affirmed and reiterated that we are not to discriminate against individuals based on their race. But for some reason, I don't know if schools aren't getting that message, if they're just bold enough to kind of go beyond what the law says. But this needs to stop, and that's really essentially why we asked the district in Appleton to either cancel this event for only students of color or open it up to all students. That's the thing. We can certainly celebrate culture, and we do want all students to feel welcome, but we can't do that by separating students based on their race. So we've asked the school to either cancel this, open it up to all students, and, we've asked that they let us know by Monday what they will do. This event is scheduled for next week, Tuesday, and if we don't hear back, we are strongly considering and planning on filing a complaint with the Federal Office of Civil Rights within the Department of Education.
I have to. Again, I go back to. I mean, what exactly is going through their heads when they do something like this, and not to. I mean, and I guess what is concerning and very problematic is that, in asking the question, what is going on in their heads, it's sort of frightening to think that they didn't see the problem with doing something like this. They didn't realize that it was wrong to be doing this in the first place. And I mean, what I guess I'm grateful for is, again, your organization, Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. And if you would take just a few moments to talk about if there are instances of this in other parts of the state and our listing area that someone is experiencing some sort of, I guess I would say outright racism. What are the steps necessary to reach out to Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty?
Probably the best way to reach us would be to go to our website, will-law.org. And we have an intake form there. So you can, if you have a question, if you're concerned about something, you can reach out to us on our intake form, will-law.org. And you can reach us there. The other thing, too, is there are a lot of, cultural groups, and that's great. When it becomes problematic is when those groups are exclusive based on race, when they exclude other students because of their race. And we've seen, most recently a parent notified us about a literacy program in Stevens Point that is only for certain ethnicities. So, all students, we've been hearing about this a lot lately. Literacy is a problem. Our proficiency rates are really low in K through 12 schools. Just take Appleton, for example. It hovers kind of around the rest of the state, just under 40% proficiency in English. And we've heard about this literacy program for Hmong students. And while it's acceptable and good to celebrate a culture, to create then a program that is only inclusive of certain ethnicities and exclusive to the rest, that's where it really becomes problematic. So, if a student or even a staff member is experiencing racial discrimination, racial harassment, either individually or they're being excluded from a program, a club, or event, that's when it really becomes problematic.
Well, and it just is yet another reminder of how we need to be vigilant in cases like this, because I think for a long time the left has just gotten away with this because we have not spoken out or pushed back. I mean, I think our natural inclination as conservatives is just like, oh, here's another example, yet another example of how unfair things are in our worlds. But we can't just leave it at that. I mean, that's why organizations like yours exists, and it requires us to speak out and call out this behavior. And it's kind of reminiscent. I mean, it probably makes light of it, but I always think about that line in Scooby Doo. I don't know if you ever watched Scooby Doo as a kid, but when the gang solved the mystery and they got the bad guy, and the bad guy said, "Oh, I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids." Well, we need to be meddlers. We need to be pushing back, and thankfully, and I mean, I genuinely am grateful for Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. And this is the message to our listeners, is that if you see issues like this, or something such that is as blatant as this example in Appleton, we need to be speaking out. We need to be reaching out to your organization. And I know that you have, I mean, example after example. And going back to even just what happened recently in Madison with that open records case that was decided. And I mean, that was a great victory. I mean, a landmark victory for your organization and for transparency here in Wisconsin.
Well, thank you. Yeah, when you get to the bottom of this, we really want students and all individuals to be treated as individuals and not because of their skin color. We want them to be treated fairly and educated in a way that respects them as individuals. And yeah, you mentioned that settlement with Madison. What really sparked that, again, this is a case about transparency. So, pushing back, advocating for transparency could avoid so many of these problems. But in Madison, there was a policy, and the school district now has kind of disavowed it and said that it was actually a principal that went off on their own. But there was a document that said you should tutor your African American students first and more often. And again, these things, they're probably well-intentioned, but you can't discriminate because of race. It's unacceptable, it's illegal, and it fails to treat students as individuals.
Well, and I think your colleague, Dan Lennington, and I'm probably not going to say it as eloquently as he did, but I mean, the litmus test is if the situation were reversed. So let's just imagine if there were some sort of program or some sort of event and it was advertised as a white-only event. Imagine the outcry. So it really boils down to any school district or any entity, taxpayer-funded entity, that's holding some sort of, has some sort of initiative or program or project or whatever it is, and they think that they can segregate students or base their criteria for acceptance into whatever they're initiating with just substitute white only and see if that would stick with the community or with whomever it is that you're trying to reach.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what this is it might sound hyperbolic or like it's exaggerating, but it is segregation. You're separating students into groups because of their race. And it doesn't matter what the race is, you can't discriminate on race based on race, period. And again, these are freshmen. They're excited to go to school. And for the school to say, well, we're going to start your high school career by separating you because of your skin color, what message does that send to these kids? It's separating them because of something that they can't control, and it's not a good start to their high school career, and it's illegal.
Well, I mean, I've often said that how insulting it is to non-whites that there are these special programs or special initiatives that, I mean, it's as if telling a non-white person that they shouldn't be they shouldn't be, I don't know, mixed among among whites, and or that they're not, in some way they're not able to achieve something unless they are a certain color, unless their skin color is a certain color. And it's so peculiar to me that they don't take a look in the mirror and do some self-reflection. But I guess our only recourse is we have to continue to call it out and reach out to organizations such as yours.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you go all the way back to 1954 to the Brown versus Board of Education decision, and you'll see that a lot of those similar arguments were made in terms of, well, what does it mean when we separate? Are we sending a message of inferiority? Is it really separate but equal? And these kinds of arguments are frankly resurfacing, and it's immoral, it's unconstitutional, and yeah, at Will here, we certainly want to advocate for all children, all students as individuals, not because of their race, and we're grateful to be able to do what we do and be able to call this out, when it's happening in Appleton, and hopefully other schools will see this and understand that it's not acceptable to do these kinds of events that are separated because of race.
Well, and I will be curious to see how they respond. And I know that you'll keep us updated at will-law.org. Well, thank you, Corey Brewer, for joining me this morning. I sincerely appreciate all your hard work and your organization's commitment to defending our freedom and liberty here in Wisconsin and beyond. Have a great day.
Yeah, Mag, you as well.
Thanks, Corey.